So within the discography discussions, kind of like you saw in his, the whole idea is I'm going to go through, we're going to go through the whole YK2, and then we got a couple little singles I pulled out that I think could kind of just give us the backstory. You know, who produced it, how long did it take, what does that mean to you? Any special references that people, you know, the behind the music for the fans while you're still alive and you haven't, you know, ruined your life with drugs or anything. The first one on it is Welcome. It's what, about an 8-second, just kind of a PSA almost. Yeah. What made you feel that you needed that introduction to it?
Going with part of the learning how to do, like, pretty much sculpt an album in a way that's more listenable in terms of like a, I guess, for making it a loose concept to a bigger concept. I wrote out a letter to myself back in 2018, 2019. In the start of this, it's a whole like long message. If you take every little skip, I guess they're skits, but you know, little snippet that I have of me just talking, no music in between like certain parts of the album, and you put them together on top of the Welcome, it's one long phrase, one long sentence pretty much, and it's pretty much just part of the glue that sticks it together. It has all the songs, like, you know, make sense on top of each other with how crazy different they sound. Gotcha.
So it's kind of just that binding piece.
Yeah.
Did you already go through the whole thing and think something's missing, or did you kind of already go through it from the gate when you already had those?
So what's funny is I had most of the songs, including some extras that didn't make the cut, and then I originally had the orders completely different. I wrote Sarah Landing last. The very last song I wrote last. That originally was going to be the first song, and it was almost going to be a YK2 in it. So like the last song would be first, and like it would go through in a different kind of order. But I decided that I wanted to tell more of the actual, I guess, feelings from me moving from the DMV, from moving from Maryland all the way to Columbus, and like why I was like moving.
So then that short intro, then we go into Summer Snow. What can you tell us about that?
Summer Snow was actually the very first song that I wrote for the project. I wrote it back in 2018. Not that long after Mac Miller's death. I was going through it really rough around that time in general, and then like his death on top of it was not the greatest thing for me mentally, him being one of my favorite artists and everything. So I originally had that beat produced back in 2017, I think, 2017. And so I finally was like, well, I have something to write to it because I like this beat, and I originally was going to sell it, but I like it so much, and I actually have something in my head for it now that I'm just going to go ahead and write to it. Originally, it was just the first 3 verses. There was no bridge, there was no 4th verse, but there was a section for it. And originally, I was going to have Tyrell Fanaticus go on the 4th verse, but instead he pretty much backed off the verse and said, I'll sing some ad-libs for you instead, but I think you should just take that 4th verse for yourself. And it took me a few months to write it, but I finally got it down, and I wrote the 4th verse for it, so it's pretty much how that came to be. It's about pretty much the beginning stages of me wanting to run away from my problems, pretty much due to my mental health and stuff. I have depression, anxiety, all that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking, okay, the key to me not being as depressed would be like to get out of the situation I'm currently in, like move, change states, gotta be somewhere else, live somewhere else. And that was pretty much like me making the decision that like, man, nothing ever goes right, I gotta go somewhere.
Dancing with Depression.
So Dancing with Depression I would say is the one song, actually no, it was one of the 2 songs on there that I produced just completely different, had a completely different mindset of like when I like made the like instrumentation, like when I like composed like the whole thing. I'd been listening to a lot of Smino around the time, and I was like, man, how does Monte Booker do that? Or Monty Booker do that? I always say Monte, I got cousins named Monte, mess that up all the time. But I was like, man, how does he make his like production sound the way it does? And a lot of it has to do with like, this man uses Foley, like just random like pins dropping, closing, opening the door, turning knobs, like keys jingling. He uses a lot of Foley in his like production, which gives it like a more, I guess, sense of area. Like you feel like you're in a room, next to like, you know, with all like the processing and stuff with like reverb and everything. And so I pretty much went back to Tyrell and Jamil, and I asked them, man, like, do y'all hear what I'm hearing, right? Like, what does he do? And Tyrell sent me some stuff back. I was like, yo, this is kind of like what Monte does. And like Jamil sent me like a couple of videos, like, hey, he does like some breakdowns here. And that was like, through that, I kind of like learned how to incorporate more acoustic sounds with the digital sounds. And I went to the homie Happy Tooth, whose name is also Colin.
Happy Tooth Colin, I like it already.
And I always wanted to collab with him. I had met him not that long after I originally moved to Columbus. He's actually the brother of someone I went to school with at Capitol as well. And through that, and like performing with him at the same like places a couple of times, seeing him like live, playing with like opening for his band, or I was getting ready to open for his band, but like we had like done like, you know, shows and stuff together, and I'd seen him at like around the place, and like I finally like asked him, hey man, you want to do this project? And he was like, I've been waiting for like this collab for like forever, because he apparently was also a fan of my music too, and we were just like, we're waiting for each other. So that's a song that's relatively about the actual move, the whole pop the cork, now I'm the man. At 23, had my whole life planned. Tripped on now I no longer stand. That whole like concept of like, man, I think I'm making big moves. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And then when you're out there, you realize, oh wow, the struggle is real. You don't just get to the point just because you move to that place. There's still like a lot of work to be done. So even if that's, you know, like a physical plane of existence, you know, a mental like state of like progress in your like mental state, or like even like with relationships and there being like, you know, trials and tribulations with that, and you know, literally like living with another person, having to deal with how they live and them dealing with you and all that kind of stuff. Is like, just because you move that one place, all your problems aren't going to be solved. You know, just because you have a kid, all your problems aren't going to be solved.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people have that mindset of like, if I just do this one thing, I'll just be happy, and that's not how it works. And that's pretty much like me interluding into that, to the rest of the project with that kind of like mindset of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna move, I'm gonna be the man, I'm gonna rule the world. And that might not, you know, be the case. Just because, you know, you move doesn't mean your problem's gonna be solved.
What made you pick Columbus? Was it just the Capitol University, or?
That was the main reason, yeah. Also, doing music in the DMV area for like a solid year kind of made me realize that maybe my style of music lyrically was not the best for that area. Because what's weird about the DMV hip-hop scene, or in general the music scene versus the Columbus music scene, is in the DMV, genres are very strict. Mm-hmm. So if you make trap music, you hanging out with the trap dudes, and like your lyrics are about banging, making money, all that kind of stuff. If you make like the stoner music, your stuff kind of sounds like Wiz Khalifa or Currency. You guys tend to stay in that lane. You do that kind of music, you make those kind of beats. If you do stuff like more like out of the pocket, it's kind of harder to find your audience out there, because people are going to be probably looking at the one song that sounds like the song that they like, rather than over the whole project being like, man, the music overall is like insane because of how strict the genres are. Because even like go-go is just go-go in the DMV. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're in a go-go rock fusion band, or like, you know, I'm playing in a reggae band that kind of plays like some, like they do some metal like drumming riffs on the side, or like some like crazy like breakdowns or something like that, or like I'm adding like, you know, electronic music to like R&B or something like that. It's like really strict on how you do stuff and how like people are like, you know, promoted. Because if you sound too much like too many different things, no one knows what to call you, right, or who knows who to book you with. And out here out in Columbus, there's more of a I guess encouragement on like breaking down like the whole like genre barriers and doing different stuff, and like having like a funk song right next to an R&B song right next to a mainstream radio, a hip-hop song, right, next to, you know, a spitterific, you know, kind of like lyrical miracle spiritual song,
for sure,
you know. And like Columbus has been pretty like open with like how open I am with genre, basically just through the people I've met the fact that like as soon as I came out here, I was playing shows. I like played a festival my first summer like living out of here in barbecue. So like that was kind of insane that like I even got booked for that last second. So like yeah, it just seems like the brand of music that I make in Columbus just tends to be more well received and not just more like little cliques liking it. It seems like overall, once one person that likes a similar style likes this one, they'll tends to gravitate towards like a more larger group of people who are looking for that sound.
Right, that makes sense. You used to have a your own heavy metal band too, right?
Not heavy metal, like post-hardcore. Yeah, like we're kind of like we're kind of like we consider ourselves post-hardcore light. My homie Bela actually, who plays all the guitar on the album, every single lick of guitar you hear, that is that guy playing it. He's the one who got me into like the progressive music scene and like listen to progressive music and like the whole like fuck genres kind of thing. Because his former band, Venus Core, was literally a band that like everyone called fusion. He hated that name, he hated that like genre, because like when you hear fusion, you think a completely different thing than what they actually play. So what they kind of played was closer to post-hardcore, like The Fall of Troy, Hell of Sun, Dance Gavin Dance, Deftones, like the more mathy, like progressive stuff that doesn't have a lot of song structure, but you can tell when the chorus comes in because like everything wells up to like one certain like point and all that kind of stuff. And so him and I pretty much had a, kind of still do have a duo where he plays all the guitar bass lines and I like process the drums, but right now we're really looking to try and like incorporate like more processed synths with acoustic drums. But like we're still a thing, I guess, kind of. We're working on stuff because we got a lot of like bigger things in store for that, like a lot of like bigger plans. But yeah, we can like we collabed. I guess like more our sound for that band would be probably like anything that says featuring West Street. So like we did something called If Your Father Was a Sorcerer, Mine Was a Bassist on my 727 record, and Victoria Weber Interlude 2 on that as well. And those are two like more post-hardcore light songs, like the style in which like we play and what we're going for with that. So yeah. And
then before all that, I think you started off with Christians, like a choir, right?
Yeah. My dad kind of forced us to my middle brother and then eventually the youngest brother when he became old enough, and our two friends in the Hope family, Will and Case, to be kind of like a worship group, like the children's worship choir, because there was no children's worship choir. So because that's a huge thing about the church, is like they're trying to get the youth involved, and that's a huge thing. And so my dad pretty much was like, you're gonna do this. And we're just kind of like, okay. So we learned some songs, we did some stepping, because both of our fathers are Kappas, Kappa Alpha Psi, historically black fraternity. And so they were just like, you're gonna do this, you guys don't have an option. You're gonna praise the Lord in the thing if y'all wanna do this music thing, or if y'all like music at all.
Right.
Yeah, it was a fun time, but it was kind of hilarious because we would argue over the name of the group. Everyone wanted to call us the Blair Hope Boys, and us being not 50, we're like, that's not the name of a band. That's not the name of a group. So we wanted to be called New Generation, but no one ever wanted to call us that.
That's funny. That's awesome. So let's get back to the YK2 project. The next one we got is number 4, Maybe/Doubt.
Yeah.
I think this is the most catchy one on the project for sure.
Yeah. Everyone loves this joint. So fun fact, the first time I played this, or like I introduced this song, was during a showcase called the Beautiful Showcase that we actually set up and did in the basement of my house.
Right? Yeah, your house, awesome.
Yep. So over the course of a month, in like the month of January, a friend of mine, Jeremy Beach, helped build the stage, and like we set everything up like into the room. We built it outside of my garage, and then like transported it in. It's actually a 2-piece stage, so like it comes up pretty much at the half. You just plop it down, so it's like semi-permanent. And through that, I pretty much played A&R. I promoted the gig. I like literally booked the show. I booked the artists. I even had some trouble with an artist that like decided to cancel like 2 minutes before he was supposed to go on. So we had the host fill in and like freestyle like his opening set for the first 15 minutes. That went really dope. People really liked that. But Maybe Doubt was the first time I ever played that, was during that set, or during that show during my set, and it was so well received. Like Bela or aka Wagosi, which is also the artist name he goes by, he was hype about that song the entire time. He loves the whining like a baby wham ad lib. Like he loves that. He loves that part. He's like, oh man. He got really hype about that. So the whole concept behind that is I just wanted to make a trap banger for the album, because I was like, well, when I first moved, I mean, I was feeling like the man, and I just don't have like a straight banger on here that's just like straight, you know, like almost egotistical, kind of like, you know, kind of like feeling myself. And so I wanted to make a song kind of actually about a song that ended up not making the project because the feature for it ended up not coming through. So I had sent a song out to somebody, and they had been complaining like, man, why people always like ask me for features, and then when I ask, yo, when the song's dropping, they don't ever like actually drop the song, or say, I'm not too sure, I must be killing them on their own songs. And I was like, dude, I want to collab with you for a minute. You looking to collab and have someone actually release the song? I'll do that.
Right.
Didn't hear anything back for like 2 months, and I had to move on with like Baby Down creating that song, and pretty much it was more or less about like, man, people who say they're about that life and they're really not about that life. It's like, man, if I come at you about like wanting to do some work, and you're just like, oh yeah, man, about that work, and you're just like, oh nah, I'm not too sure anymore, man. It's kind of like, well, that must be because I'm about you in your own track, on my own track, that you guys were just complaining about not having somebody come on for you with. So
right.
That one ended up coming out of like frustration, but I also just wanted to make a trap hanger too. I was just like, I want to make something really catchy, really simple, straightforward.
Yeah, it's definitely catchy. Like I was in there doing the cedar stuff on the walls, and I had the speaker out here, just but just catching up on all my stuff, just so I knew a little bit more. And every time on the loop of that project that I'd go around, that would be the one that caught my attention every trip. Or the other ones, like, if it was in there, it'd be far more on my mind. That one, every time, he's like, you can't. It's just like, all right. Like it takes over your body, like the way that the rhythm goes, for sure. Next, we got Who Me. What can you tell us about it?
So the reason why it's called Who Me Dream State is because originally when I made the album, it's going to be like a longer album, like 16, 18 tracks I was originally going to do, and Dream State and Who Me were going to be completely separate songs that went into each other, intertwined in some super complex way that I was going to do it. And then I ended up in the actual beat session itself, I decided I don't like the way Who Me sounds. This sounds more like Dream State. So I just moved all the instruments to the side, and I was like, I'm still going to do it in the same key so that it like melts together properly. And when I made Who Me, I was like, all right, I'm going to pick the most random like lead synth sound that I can find. Found it, and it was like almost on like the first, maybe second like instrument that I like found. I was like, oh, okay, that's the one. And then like playing it out and everything, and then I was like, man, I wonder what the new melody like lines sound like over top the old melody lines. And then eventually I just put them on top of each other, and I was like, oh, that's the bridge, outro, like breakdown, kind of like right there. And so when I was making the actual Who Me section, the more aggressive section, I got to the actually like structuring out the chorus, and I literally just kept saying like, Who Me, like Who Me. I'm like, oh, okay, that's the chorus right there. I know what I'm gonna do. And then I pretty much I really like stopped everything, made the beat section to the chorus, wrote the chorus out, and I was like, all right, well, now I guess I should finish the song. And I wanted another feature on it, and my original feature ended up also like bailing on me. So I pretty much hit up Tyrell Fanaticus, because I was like, well, I know he'll hit me back for sure. And so he got back with me with a verse after like a while. Like the whole process took like, you know, a few months in general for like almost every song for the most part, unless I made it right then and there. And so like I finally got his stuff back. And yeah, pretty much it's just, the song is about more or less in general people doubting you, and you're just being like, me really, like those things that you're saying about me are very severely false. I definitely don't have a crap flow, thank you, sir. But in general, like it's about like people like and just wanting to put you down because they don't feel good about themselves, and you're just like, I don't feel like that's the truth right there. Which is why the chorus is like when people at the end it's like they say, "Man is about to blow." Yeah, that's me. You know, I say that line literally just because it's like you hear all like the negative stuff, and then like that like once you, and then that one person that's like those few people that are just like, nah, man, like they don't know what they're talking about. Once you get that actual like validation from like the people that you've been actually wanting to get the validation from, it's like it doesn't even matter what these people are saying anymore. Like I can make jokes about you. Y'all talk about how I got a crap flow, man. Y'all off beat on your own songs, like. That kind of like mindset of like, I'm gonna not believe what you're saying about me just because I know the people that I actually care about are giving me the validation, which goes literally into like dream state being a kind of like an entendre on top of itself. Like I'm living in this dream state, like yeah, the people who are giving me validation are the ones I want validation from, but at the same time they're still my peers. I'm still like same level as I was before. Just because I got that validation doesn't mean that I'm like the next Jay-Z or the next Kendrick Lamar or anything like that at all. But also it means I'm living in like this dream state of like, this is where I want to be. I want people to like feel that way about my music, the way that these people are like, the people I want validating me have been validating me. And so it's like, you can even like take that in life, like literally like, yo, you think you're doing a crap job at your, you know, at your place of employment? Maybe, you know, that one person that like you respect their work ethic the most are like, nah, man, like I know you haven't been getting like recognized, but like you're doing a dope job. Or like even like that one sense you're like, man, I feel like I'm not parenting my kids right, and your kid says that one profound thing that you're just like, man, maybe I am doing something right, kind of situation.
You kind of touched on something there. I know you mentioned in your early submission that you early on there was some instrument you were playing, right? Yeah. What instrument was that? My memory sucks.
So I originally played baritone, the baritone horn, in elementary school for about a year before I quit due to bullying. Yeah. And
as somebody that early on got shut down in a music path because of bullying, you've now become a grown man and you're putting out really unique feeling, like it's very unique to you and your situation. How do you overcome the people that talk the shit? Like you mentioned, the people that are having a bad day, so they see your song, they're like, oh, that song sucks. They might not even listen to it. Or, you know, how do you deal with those criticisms and still be able to put out that authentic you music?
It's funny because a lot of it has to do with like in general like just talking to like the peers of mine that like I like respect, like specifically like I talk to Bela about like this all the time, like, man, like does my music suck? And he's because like I'm like, dude, you like play music, man, so it's like if my shit sucks, man, like I know you can hear it for sure. And he's like always like, nah, dude, it literally doesn't. I just think these people are just like, you know, they either like just don't mess with it because it's different, or like they just, you know, they're just premeditating. They're just like, they feel bad about themselves or whatever. So a lot of it has to do with like venting a lot is like a huge thing, because that's one thing like in general. Like, by the way, if y'all have mental illnesses, I definitely recommend going to therapy. It's not for everyone, but at least try it. A lot of stuff that my therapists over the years have pretty much told me is like, or rather taught me, is how to compartmentalize those people into like being like, yo, they're probably in their own box, their own little bubble, their own little world, and they don't actually mean the things they're saying, or like you said, they like probably didn't even listen to the thing. They're just commenting just so they can feel better about themselves, because, you know, they just feel like negativity and shutting people down makes them feel better about themselves. So like a lot of it has to do with like just conversations I've had, looking back on stuff, in general, peer reviews. Like a lot of the times, like I send my stuff out to like people that like literally like don't even listen to this type of music I make, just to get their reaction. I've never even heard the kind of music I make, or remember my stuff from like when I was used to making stuff in high school to like, or making stuff throughout college. I was like pretty mediocre to like stuff like now, where it's like, man, I have like an actual full composition kind of going on. And in general, like writing, like I write a lot of it out in kind of like, I'll put them all into like one bubble of like, this is how I feel because of one situation that piled on top of another situation, and I'll make a song just about the feeling that I had, and it'll be like a bunch of different subjects, or like why I feel that way, like my song Insecure on my Sorry Awkward record, like that. The first verse is about pretty much someone using you for your time. The second verse is about someone using you for like gain, like, like, hey man, put me on, but we've never been cool. You only talked to me twice in 12th grade. Like, why are you trying to come at me now that you see that like I kind of like have been like doing stuff,
right?
And then the third verse is generally like more like about yourself, being insecure about like myself, and being insecure about like the things that like you deal with on a daily basis, because like having confidence and getting out of that comfort zone is like a part of life, and like no longer being insecure about the things you were insecure to move on and like progress. But yeah, the general like vibe is to like be able to progress and move on.
Does live performing help you with all those things that you're kind of talking about, of like dealing with those insecurities? Because I mean, it's amazing to me, the more interviews that I do of this with musicians, how many musicians either hate to be in front of people, or like everything that has to do with performing music seems like the introvert in you would kind of just shut down. What is it about performing that just makes you just feel alive? Because I've seen the videos, like you light up like somebody just flipped the switch when you get to go on stage.
I don't know. I love performing. I don't know. It's so weird. It is like a way of like, it just feels like I'm just getting everything like off my chest, like right then and there on stage. Like even like, it's so crazy because I'll literally pick my set list just based on like how I kind of feel or whatever, what I want to do, and how I want to make the crowd feel, or how I want to perform that day or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I love performing. Like literally, it's able. So one thing I love about live shows, and like I feel like as a musician you have to be an active concert goer too, because like if you don't understand how people want to receive your like songs live, it'll like, I guess, diminish the quality your music could have. Like your song could be like 2 steps from being great, just because you don't have the mentality of like, how would this be perceived live? How would people react to this live? How would they want to chant my like songs and lyrics back to themselves or back to me live? And so like a huge thing is I want to be able to connect with people in person. So a lot of times I've been getting like, I get a lot of like continuous fans from people who have literally seen me live, because they're just like, yeah, the music's cool and everything, and like I like it on record, but man, when I see you live, it's like a completely different song. And it's like, and like having that like connection with like your actual fan base that can turn your like fans to friends, to people that can because they'll continually come out and like support you, and like they're no longer casual fans, or people are just like, yo, I know every word to every song, I buy merch, I got the album, I got the vinyl, I got the stickers, the whole thing. And literally like that one personal connection of like, how would this be perceived live can like change your music and how people listen to your music in general.
Yeah, that was beginning of this year, or is that last year already? We went to see a show. Token came to town. You know Token?
Yeah.
But one of the openers was Ken Archie.
Okay.
And I'd never heard of Ken Archie before this day, but the way that he controlled a crowd, the way that he made you get in, like he forced you to be entertained and energetic about what he was doing, kind of teach you a couple words. When I say this, you guys say that, like getting that crowd participation to where you have a good time with somebody at a show like that, and then every time that you hear their music afterwards, it takes you back to that personal connection, like you said.
Yeah.
Kind of like, oh yeah, I remember when he said this, or remember when we wanted him to hear that, but he came out with that whole song that we never even heard of, and it was even better than whatever. Like it's that personal connection that's not just a digital download, I think, is what the differences in that. But where did we leave off? The next one we got on the project is Jungle Roses?
Jade Roses.
Jade Roses.
Yeah.
I got really good handwriting, everybody. Let me tell you.
So what's cool about Jade Roses is I guess I was listening to a lot of Flower Boy when I wrote that song, but I was not thinking about Tyler, the Creator, when I made that song, which is the funniest thing about that, because every time I perform it or every time someone listens to it, they're just like, yo, that sounds like it'd be smack on Flower Boy. Like, it literally sounds like you're like taking notes, like listening to the album and taking notes, which is funny because sort of true, sort of not. Around that time when I started like composing my songs more of a song structure without being a verse chorus format, I had wrote a bunch of songs in the key of C# major, which is called the Heroes theme, which, fun fact, is the main key that Tyler Creator's Flower Boy is actually in. So I was, shout out to Jamil again, because he actually showed me this podcast that you can pretty much listen to anywhere that you listen to podcasts, called Dissect. And it's just, how does he say? It's a long form musical analysis in short digestible chunks. That's the motto of the whole thing. And it's like 30-minute, maybe 40-minute like episodes where like he analyzes one song from an entire album. So the whole season will be one album, and he'll like analyze it song by song. Have one episode for introduction, one for outro. And within like the seasons that he did Flower Boy, and that was the first one I started with, because I was like, well, Flower Boy is my favorite Tyler project, and like that's the one that pretty much had me like obsessed and being like, all right, I have to go back. There's no way I can't go back and listen to Wolf and listen to Bastard. You know what I'm saying? Because how did he get to this point from where he was? And I had, and during that podcast, they explain literally the actual like musical like theory behind of what he did. He did a lot of like classical stuff. He did a lot of stuff that was like very jazz oriented, stuff that like hip hop guys just don't do, or you just don't hear on a hip hop record, period. Right. And one of those main things was he changed the chord structure for quite a few songs in the key of C# major, so that they was pretty much a reference back to the previous song that had that key, but he had just reworked the way that the chords actually played out. And so I had originally wanted to make 7 EPs about the 7 deadly sins, and the first one I was going to talk about was going to be Envy. And Jade Roses was going to be on there, Pokemon Emerald was going to be on there because of the green, and then Leaf Green was also going to be in there. Like, there was all like 3 things that had like the green thing, and they're all in C# major, and they're just going to go into each other like super fluidly. So like through literally like just pretty much learning through another podcast, I was able to apply something that someone I actively listen to on a daily basis into like a song. And I just wanted to have a song where I was like singing a lot more on it. I just wanted to challenge myself to sing a lot more on this project in general. So Jade Roses was like a huge one that came out out of just straight envy that of like pretty much of a relationship that someone was having with another person that like I wish I had but could not have. Right. Like, the rose in my garden's not growing for some reason, but for some reason it's super sunny over there, and we're right next to each other. We're neighbors. So yeah. And when you make a song like that and you put it out, do you anticipate those people that it's subliminally about hearing it, or what's that process like for you? If they know, would they be able to figure it out if they listen to it? Yeah, the fact that it's happened before, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. My song "Our Lush" is actually about someone specific, and back when it's about unrequited love, so it's about a former love interest, and when I went back to Maryland to hang out with them for a bit, they literally asked me if the song was about them, and I was like, huh? what was that again? And eventually I actually admit, it's like, yeah, it's about you. So I've had that happen. Yeah, people come up to me and be like, is that about me? And being like, I've been like, yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and say that's not. So yeah, I anticipate it happening, even if I don't drop names or anything. But I don't anticipate like reactions of like how, you know, if they'll react negatively or not. Mostly just because half the time it's like an expression of like what I'm feeling. I'm not really like saying anything that would like, put them down or anything like that.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Let's move on to our next one's what, PKMN?
Emerald, yeah.
And that's Pokemon, right?
Yep.
Is what our acronym's for?
Yeah. So it's
You kind of touched on that a little bit before, but kind of give us if we didn't hear that last clip, what can you tell us about that new song?
Yeah, so Pokemon Emerald, or PKMN Emerald, or Please Keep My Name Emerald, is a song about pretty much envy. Not necessarily jealousy, because that's one thing I did learn, is that jealousy and envy are two different emotions that you feel. Envy is wanting something that someone has that you don't have, and jealousy is the fear of someone taking something that you have away from you. And so I wanted to pretty much make sure that I like hit those points when I made the three songs, Jade Rose's Pokemon Emerald and Leaf Green, was that I wanted it to be about envy, not jealousy. I wanted something that I couldn't get. And Please Keep My Name Emerald literally just means more or less, just keep my name green. I'm feeling, envy. I'm green for envy type of deal. So it's like, still think about me in the sense, I hope you still think about me in the sense that I want you to think about me in. And if you don't, that'll like shatter me. That's pretty much what that kind of like concept is. And like, which goes with the hero's theme, C# major, that Jade Rose's Pokemon Emerald and Leaf Green all are in. That I got after Tyler's Flower Boy, was that I wanted the heroes, because it's normally like the hero's theme comes out when the hero of the story is dealing with something of trial and tribulations, either like positive or negative. A lot of the times it comes out when it's at that point where the hero of the story has to make a really like crazy decision, or like they're testing their actual morals and everything like that. And a huge part about how Jade Roses goes into Pokemon Emerald is, if you listen closely, at the end of Jade Roses, I don't finish that the piano phrase. It literally goes womp womp womp, and it doesn't go back to the C chord, the C# chord. So then when Pokemon Emerald comes in, it immediately hits that same exact chord on beat, which is why they're spaced perfectly like that. So it's like wah wah wah, dong, boo doo doo doo, and it goes into the whole thing. And when I made that originally, the poem at the end, the second part, the poem is called Nostalgia, which is pretty much about going back to a time where like you weren't as stressed about X, Y, and Z. I didn't have to think about, what's making me happy. I didn't have to think about, am I happy every single day. Back when I could literally just flip on my Game Boy, flip on my DS, and just play Pokemon Emerald. Before I had to deal with like us having like, emotional problems with each other. The fact that before I had mental issues, before X, Y, and Z, and through that poem, I wanted definitely to put the poem on the record, but I was like, I don't think I can like justify putting the poem by itself and still have another poem-based song. Having two on there would be kind of like diminish it from being like this is a musical record to like this is more of a expression of like just emotions or whatever, which is fine. I just didn't want it to be perceived as less of an album. And so I decided, well, I can always have a 2-part song. There's always that. I can have 2 of those. And I ended up going to the studio, making the beat for Pokemon Emerald in like 30 minutes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, when I sent the drums out to Diggity D, he pretty much didn't change any of the rhythm. Like he added like a couple of hits on with or like another couple instruments or something like that. But other than that, he didn't really do anything but change the sounds. He pretty much like, this is perfect the way it is. I don't really want to do anything to this. And right before we were done with the record, right before mastering, I had hit Jamil up and I said, hey man, if you wouldn't mind throwing some like singing ad-libs on this just throughout the entire like actual song portion right before the spoken word piece, I'd really love that. Because it would really bring the whole thing together. And like when he sent it to me, I was like, man, I like literally said, I don't even want to chop up your 2 vocal takes. I'm just gonna split them into completely different like panning options and just have it just play like as is, because your voice complemented it so well. It literally just filled the rest of the song out for me. And I was just kind of like, I don't want to take anything out. I don't want to chop anything up. It's good as is, and that's how that song came to be.
The more I talk to you, the more it seems like you're just a really avid student of music. Was that self-taught? Was that what you learned at school, or all the music theory and all the different breaking down the ways that it all structurally goes together? Is that your brain always just work like that? It's
so funny because I always loved like beat switches and stuff, and key changes in songs a lot. That was always like one of my favorite things about like the new brand of hip hop, where people like tend to do more stuff like that. Cause that's a rock thing. That's like a rock and roll, like 70s kind of thing. That's not something that you really hear in popular music these days. So I would say it's more so it's a little different, because I remember some theory from when I first doing my year of baritone before quitting and stuff, and I had been dabbling and playing piano a little bit. I even took some piano classes in high school and stuff, so I could understand theory a little bit more. But I'm like so lazy at the way like classroom settings are like structured. I have to have like either one-on-one, or it's like got to be like, I'm in the studio, I want to make the song. What are song keys and chord structures? Kind of like deal. So like I wanted to learn more about that. I found a couple of resources both by myself and through like Tyrell and Jamil, who helped me out a lot on that kind of stuff. And I pretty much started teaching myself how to do everything from scratch as like a slow build throughout my entire college career, leading up to the release of my project 727, where I did everything by hand. It's not a single sample on there. I played everything by myself. Even though it's like not the time that I like made all my beats, but there's like no samples, there's no loops. It's literally just me playing everything out. And so from that, I was like, I like this. I like this feeling of being able to do it all yourself. And then I was like, but I gotta figure out how to take this to the next level. Something's missing. And a conversation I had with a neighbor kid of mine back in Maryland right before I moved, like literally 2 days before I moved, he came into my room because he was going to school for the same thing. He was literally getting ready to go to college for the same thing I went to college for. And then he had come to my room, studio area, like listen to some of my beats and stuff. He was like, man, these are really dope, but like the one thing I think you should do, add chords on top. It's like once I think you learn how to add chords on top of your music, you'd be done pretty much with like these songs. Because like the only thing that's missing is the fullness of a chord. Mm-hmm. And then he gave me some sources too. He even like sent me some notes from his own theory and stuff, because he's like a jazz head, plays multiple instruments, literally going to school for music composition and stuff. And like through a bunch of these different resources, I even have like a friend now, Jasper, who's like, yo, hit me up if you need to know anything about theory. That's what I went to school for. And it's a little bit of self-taught, then like a little taught through like friends and stuff that's giving me like resources and things. And it's just like putting it all together. It's like I did a lot of research, like pretty much on my own. I learned like pretty much color theory when it came to music. I wanted to learn more about like why songs feel the way they do, so I learned more about dissonant chords, tritones, like crazy, like more advanced like stuff that like hip hop dudes don't learn about, right? Just because it's like more of a musician kind of thing. It's so weird because it's like saying that it's like kind of funny with hip hop, because like it just doesn't that's the cool thing about it. It doesn't follow the standard. It doesn't have to.
Right.
And so like a lot of hip hop dudes don't use like these classical and jazz based things in their music. So when you do hear it, it's like, where did this come from? Like, it's a completely different realm of hip hop that I feel like a lot of people like haven't touched on yet.
Yeah, ever since I can remember, I've always like searching YouTube for like the classical / hip hop, like the mashups.
Yeah.
Like you get some real nice bass, and then you get a little bit of Beethoven. You're like, that goes together perfectly.
Yeah.
And like you said, not too many people really either take the time or just go through those type of samples to put it in.
Exactly.
But good for you for doing that. Our next one takes us to what? Shadows, right?
Yep. So Shadows was probably the song that took the longest to make, and no shade or nothing, but like basically because Bela took forever on the guitar parts. It's super funny because I had everything done before the guitar and before the actual live bass. So I wrote a bass line and stuff. And I sent the original instrumental to Tyrell and Jamil, and Jamil was like, this is cool. But Tyrell pretty much was saying that, man, I feel like you should have an actual bass, either play the bass line you're playing or just play a completely different bass line, but it needs to be a real bass that fits the song. Because the huge part about Shadows is I wanted it to be kind of like a sad funk song. That one kind of came.
Takes us to Warp Drive.
Cool. Like Warp Drive was probably one of my favorites to produce, honestly. Being obsessed with Mac Miller during this entire time of this like production, he was probably one of the top artists I was listening to, next to probably Saba, which was like kind of influenced a lot of the way I was rhyming. But I wanted to make a song that sounded kind of like Jet Fuel from Mac's Swimming record, and through that I kind of just was like, well, let me find the key of the song. The key's like G minor or something like that, and like I built the chords on top of it, like how I like wanted, and like I played out like all of like the little like extra melodic stuff, the counter melodies and everything. The one thing that pretty much that was one of the ones that like not a lot of like changed the drum like actual pocket itself, but a lot of the drum sound stuff changed and like transitions and stuff. Originally I had sent the song to my homies Lexi and Corey of Day Trip. We collabed before on Separately Together on my Sorry Awkward tape, and I had pretty much only sent Lexi sent her stuff back to me in like 30 minutes flat. Like it was like really fast. It was like her stuff was layered already and everything.
Nice.
Like doubles, ad-libs, the whole nine, and I was like, yo, let me get your stems whenever. But a huge issue that actually came upon when I was originally making that song, before I even got into issues with like the artistry, was originally the pre-chorus had me saying I don't know over top of it, just like a triple flow stutter, kind of like saying I don't know, because I did not know what I was going to put for the pre-chorus, but I knew that I'm like, okay, this is the flow I kind of want. There is an artist out in the DMV he goes by the name Black Prophet. I don't really care that like his name's out there or whatever, but he has a song called Clark Kent, and which is crazy is like I'm a big fan of his music, and I had posted a preview because I was like, man, this song's coming together really good. I want to give a preview of this song out there on like my story, and I had it out there, and I got some messages like, yo, man, what the fuck? This sounds like my song Clark Kent. This sounds like, and I got messages from other people like, yo, this sounds like Black Prophet's Clark Kent. I'm like, yo, that was not my intent. For one, I do that triplet flow as a literal warm-up for vocals, for rapping, when it comes to like doing flow. Since then, he and I pretty much like we don't talk as much anymore. I saw him at a live gig or whatever, but like I pretty much squashed it, so I don't really care about like talking about the story publicly or anything like that, because it's something that happened that was a huge misunderstanding and got blown out of proportion. But it's fine, everything's squashed and like things are whatever. even if he's not a fan of me anymore, I'm still a fan of him. I like his music. He makes really quality music. Definitely a dope talent out there. But hey, sometimes this happens in like making music. Sometimes people have two ideas that are like that end up being like the same thing and not coinciding like properly. But
for sure,
I immediately rewrote like the actual like I actually wrote the pre-chorus that same like night that I got those messages, and yeah. Then I sent it back to Lexi. She was like, it'll take some time for me to learn the new ones. And we ended up restructuring it in general because Corey ended up not being able to come up with a verse. He was like, man, I just don't feel like I'm coming up with a strong one enough in time. Because like, man, Lexi like murdered it. Like, oh my goodness. Like when I got her verse back, I was like, yo, did I just get washed on my own song like, in 30 minutes? Like that bothers me. And so I ended up having to, originally it was going to be like just the singing part in the beginning, and then my first like 8 bars was the verse. Like originally it was like moved over like a whole like almost 8 bars. So then like that was my verse. Mm-hmm. And because of Lexi's verse being so strong, I was like, man, I gotta like just move that to the front, write another extra 8 at the end. I moved her from 2nd to 3rd because after Corey dropped out, I recruited Bela Lugosi for the 2nd verse. And originally he was just like, I was already planning on moving him to the 2nd verse. I just hadn't done it in the like beat originally, and he had pretty much like, man, he was saying like, I'm too intimidated by this verse to like write this 3rd verse, bro. And I was like, I was planning on moving you anyways, but I get it. Right. So I changed the structure so it was easier on him to have a mindset of writing. Like, okay, I'm the 2nd verse now. Okay, I got what I'm gonna say. And it took him a while to do that, and I literally had to hype him up so hard in the session because he was like nervous. He hadn't recorded in a while, and he was like, man, I just feel like my verse ain't really like that good. It's not polished. I'm like, dude, let me read your verse. Read it, and I was like, dude, this is fine. Just rap it, bro. And like, from that, I've literally had quite a few people, like specifically one of my homies, like hit me up, was like, yo, those beginning bars of that 2nd verse, man, that literally stuck with me hard. And like, since then, Bela's like, really? I was like, dude, I told you was fine, man. Told you your verse was fine. And yeah, so that one was like a real fun one to come out. And specifically the album version having the part 2 at the end. So what's cool is the original track is just in 120. It is literally the radio single like song that I like made. This is the BPM's 120. It's in a really accessible like key signature, and the single was like 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And I wanted to actually just straight tempo change on them with the same exact structure, and then just change the Wurlitzer from like being like more piano to a straight like underwater kind of sound. So I slowed it down from 120 to 104, and we restructured the drums a little bit, and I had that one long verse, and that's got like some of like my favorite bars on the entire thing, like some of my favorite wordplay on the whole thing. It's like all up in that one verse. And like, I originally was already going to plan to do that because I wanted to make, that was the original part 2 song that I was going to make, because of pretty much Mac Miller having Self-Care being a pretty much part 2 song with Oblivion at the end of it, mm-hmm. having that like cool switch that's still in the same key, and so I wanted to do something similar on that. Literally, that's my ode to Mac Miller song from like Dang by Mac Miller.
Gotcha.
I was listening to that a lot, and I was listening to a lot of To Pimp a Butterfly when I like made that track, and I was like, man, I kind of want to do a weird kind of fusion thing with that kind of like style too. And I had everything done. Bela originally wrote his guitar parts like one night that I had like was helping out a friend doing some crazy like drama stuff going on in their life, and so like I was like pretty much not in the house at all. I was like, yo, here's the session. I can play this joint on a loop for you. You can practice your joints. I'm gonna go drop this person off, deal with what I'm doing here. I come back, we'll track, and then like we tracked a demo, and then we never went back to the demo until like almost a year later. After I'd already gotten the bass line from my homie Aaron James from the band Blend, which is a local Columbus band, and He's also another DJ, like, producer that I've worked with. He's actually a fraternity brother of mine. But I've worked with him on a couple like random singles, and like he sent me some beats, and like we've worked on stuff together. And pretty much like I had the idea of the one line, I'd rather be left with my thoughts than have you waste your time. I'd rather listen to my thoughts than have you waste your time. That one line that I literally sent it to somebody in a text through, and it was a huge thing. I don't want to go into it. It was like a huge like drama thing, but like I sent that to that person in that text, and that one line was like, man, that line literally, like that sentence literally made me feel some type of way, to the point where like, yeah, I gotta write a whole song about it. So like the concept of thinking you should be with the person that you think is going to make you right, but ultimately realizing that they're not right for you,
right?
Is where that kind of like that came from. And I guess the title Shadows came from Childish Gambino Shadows, because like I also was like thinking about that song a lot when I like wrote that, which is why the song is just like layered the way it is, honestly, with all like the singing passages over top of the rapping passages, over top of like the monotone melodic passages. Then I have like the heavy auto-tune singing, then I have like the not heavy auto-tune singing, and then I have a spoken word piece at the end over top of the chorus. And it's like the way I like structured it together was like I wanted to make a ballad, because there are no hip-hop ballads. That's not a thing. So I was like, I want to do that. No one does this. Ballads aren't really like a thing that you hear in music too often. R&B doesn't do that much anymore. The times you hear ballads are probably like more indie bands and kind of thing. So I was like, I want to see if I can bring this kind of like style to like hip hop, and like try and like do it in my own kind of way. But yeah, that was during like a pretty emotional time of mine, which is really cool how like Jade Rose's Pokemon Emerald and Shadows all go into each other the way they do, even though Shadows is not even in the same key. I think it's actually in like D minor or something like that.
Gotcha. Would you have made the same project without Mac Miller? It sounds like he was quite the influence.
What's funny is I think the project would still sound similar to how it did, but I think Mac Miller's death is what really spun me to be like, I need to study these people while they're alive.
Right.
Like I need to study these people while they're making the music, because Mac dropped Circles and I was like, what is even this album now? And apparently it's supposed to be a triptych. There was supposed to be a third one on the end too. It's supposed to be Swimming in Circles with another project on the end, which we'll unfortunately never hear. But it's like the fact that this dude's like, he was already on to something else like years and years and years before Swimming even came out.
Right.
And like I was like, man, I gotta like listen to, like I learn from these people now while like I can. And so like it made me go back and like study how like he did certain things, and like, you know, learn, like watch some interviews and stuff, and like learn like, okay, so that was his mindset when he like makes music, like here, like okay, that's what he was thinking when he wrote that song, kind of deal. I think if Mac Miller had not unfortunately died, it would sound probably closer to a Tyler heavier influence. I think Tyler on like Childish Gambino, mostly just because of this mind state I was already in when like I was going to make the album anyways. I had like a huge like, I want to go for my Because the Internet again, like because I like wanted to try and do it before, but I feel like I messed up doing it, and I want to do it again now, but I can learn different things from other artists. And like I had been listening to Flower Boy a lot. I was like, I like the way he does it with like the whole concept is he's literally just in his car driving to somebody's house the whole time, and like he just drops the car off and just starts walking on foot, literally just like the sound effects in between like certain songs and stuff. I was like, man, I gotta learn how to do things like that. So like I think it was just like, it would be slightly different, but I think because of Mac Miller's untimely death, it like jumped his influence into my music more than it already had.
Gotcha. Well, if you could pick one Mac Miller project and you could only listen to that one project and none of his other discography, what are you listening to? That face there is how you know you asked the right question.
Yeah, oh man. I want to say watching movies, but only if it's the bonus track. If I'm not allowed to have the bonus version, then it has to be Good AM. I think that's what it is.
I think that's fair. I was in my head. I was going movies or trying to decide something of like the very early years.
Yeah, because like for me,
or actually to make this even harder, did you include what can I come up with it? The demonic shit that he made.
The Larry Fisherman stuff. The Delusional Thomas.
Delusional Thomas. Yeah, Larry Fisherman was his jazz project.
Yeah.
Which I think that was another brilliant thing that he did. Opposed to where instead of putting all that out under the Mac Miller label, to just come out with a whole different persona. So if it doesn't hit, yeah, it's just a throwaway project. But if it hits, then you're like, yeah, that was like Faces was fantastic.
That was a huge the personification of like different artists was a huge like influence on me because I wanted to do that. I still do. Which is why I'm so invested in like a different genres and different music projects under different genres and different labels and different complete sounds or whatever. Is because like the whole having a persona in music is so rare these days that when you have someone like Mac Miller who does Larry Lovestein and then Larry Fisherman and Delusional Thomas, like when you find those like projects, it's just like, yo, when did he make this? Because like literally the Larry Lovestein stuff only started showing up to me once I started listening to Circles like religiously,
right?
And then out of nowhere I was just like, this is Mac. Hold on. And then I had to do more research and I was like, oh man, I really like how he did that. Because I feel like a lot of you gotta like dig for certain artists that do that kind of stuff. It's like really heavy, like independent guys or like underground dudes that do that kind of stuff. But yeah, for me, Best Day Ever was a huge influence on like what made me a Mac Miller fan. And what's funny is, I mean, that project has aged iffy. Specifically the Donald Trump song, which I love that interview where he literally denounced like his actual like yeah, don't support that dude anymore. The song is just a song.
Right.
FDT. But yeah, the fact that he had like that progression from like just the happy kid to the more emotional stuff was like a huge play on like how I do music too.
That makes sense. I see that for sure. Our next one we got is Han Solo. You released that as a single before the regular project, didn't you?
Yep. Almost whole year before actually. In 2019, I said earlier in the interview that I had a gig. I played my first festival in 2019. It was a local festival in Columbus called Narbecue. And I got booked from this guy, Zach, who plays bass in the band Tourist Trap out there. Zach is also a DMV native. I think he's originally from like either Anne Arundel County or Baltimore. He moved out there and stuff. And so he had worked at the bar across the street from where I would frequent and play open mics. And he has friends that played over there and stuff. The DJ guy that was the host was a huge friend, big friend of him. And so like he came in one day, saw me playing, like, and immediately was like, "Yo, you're from Maryland?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm from the DMV, up Maryland." And he's like, "Yo, me too, blah blah." We started hitting it off and stuff. And he had pretty much said like, eventually he had seen me enough times where it's just like, man, I know I just like booked all these acts and stuff for like my festival that I put on every year, but like, man, it'd be really dope if I could get you on doing like a quick like 15-20 minute set like right before like the like closer of the night, OG Vern. And I was like, well, yeah, man, that'd be dope. He's like, man, I can pay you and stuff too. I mean, originally I wasn't supposed to get paid or whatever, but he pretty much was like, yo, I'm not gonna go back on my word or whatever. I'll still pay you and things. But I was like, I'll still do it for free if that's like what it's about, because this is supposed to be for charity. But regardless, I got like a cool little like gig under my belt, like to be one of the only like acts also getting paid out there too was pretty cool. And like got to network. I played before Happy Tooth and Doug, which is like their full band kind of dig. And then like in between them and like OG Vern was like pretty dope, like 15-20 minute set. And like I released Han Solo originally because I was going to drop YK2 in 2019, but I decided to touch it up and everything as I started like making more songs. I was like, I want this to come out right. So Han Solo was like something that was fun for the crowd that I could like make for literally for that specific like festival, something new. Be like, yo, this is the single for the summer, this joint's hot, run it up. And like I would literally be like, yo, I need some karaoke participation. Every time I say shoot first, I need y'all to say go hard. So I'd be like, shoot first, go hard, dang, I think I go hard kind of. And so like that was like one thing that like maybe be like, I gotta start thinking about how I'm gonna perform songs live. I can't just like make a song and then like perform it live, because if like it doesn't come off as like a really good song to play live, no one's gonna care that I'm playing live or what energy I have on the stage or whatever. Right. So that was like one thing that hugely influenced like Han Solo and the early release of it as well, because like people really like that song and it had really good traction when I first had dropped it, and like even like that whole year span that it like came out, a lot of people were just like, man, that shoot first song, man, is always stuck in my head. I'm just like, awesome. I'm glad people like that. So.
Absolutely. We're coming on to the back end of it. The next one we have is Runaway X Broken, right?
Yeah, Far Away.
Far Away
X Broken. Yeah. So.
I tell you, I should be a doctor the way I fucking scribbled out this shit. Like I've been listening to this for like the last 4 days, and I'm like, that looks like an R.
Yeah, no, I totally understand though, because sometimes I'd be like just trying to write something down, I'm like, what?
I mean, we write things so seldomly anymore. It's all type. But I was like, I'm using everything I normally type on to make sure that we get this down. Exactly. But what can you tell us about that song?
So what's cool is I literally just got to explain this a couple of days ago, because my homie Bela literally pointed this out to me, because he literally paused the song and was like, yo, man, I heard that piano sample in the beginning, bro. I know where that's from. Like, no one else out here, unless they knew my discography, was gonna know where that's from. And that's a series of songs that I used to literally just rap over that one piano sample in the beginning. It would just be on a loop for like 4 minutes straight, and I just like freestyle over top. It would be like a venting session for me. Mm-hmm. And I had, as the song indicates, that's the 10th iteration of it, and it's also the first time, well, actually the second time I ever wrote to it. It's normally a freestyle thing. I tried writing to the piano many a times, but it like never came out the way I wanted to. It wasn't raw like I wanted to. And so I would just freestyle over top of it. I would always get the way I wanted it to sound, and then I'd sing with like super heavy autotune on the end, like just Far Away, and just some like riffing stuff. Mm-hmm. And so when I made that song was originally like 7 minutes long, and I had really personal stuff on the front half, which was probably closer to about like 5 minutes, and the back half, which is like 2-3-ish minutes. And I just couldn't say some stuff on it, and the song was just a little too long, and I was just stretching like the actual like limit I wanted to have on the album, because people's attention spans are like not as long, not as good these days. So like if you have a project that's over an hour long, people are going to consider that a long project.
Right.
So I wanted to cut it down to about 44-45 minutes, so that like people could listen to it. It'd be a really good, nice, like, digestible listen, not too long, not too short. And then maybe even at the end, you're just like, man, I want to listen to that again. Having that like emptiness at the end where it's like, man, I feel like I didn't digest the whole thing. I got to go back and like make sure I replay this. It was like part of the thing. And Far Away X was a huge, huge like factor in that. Like, was I going to keep the whole like 7-minute track? Was I going to like chop it up in a specific way? And so what I did is, for like my auto-tuned vocals, I actually learned how Kanye West did that, his effect on Runaway, which is what I did in the beginning. So you have the regular piano playing, and then as soon as the first phrase is over, it starts playing in reverse. And so it's pretty much the end of Far Away X, and then it just goes into like the singing part, and then comes into like a drum part. So like that like harmony thing that's kind of sounds like guitars playing is like really just me singing in reverse with like that fuzz effect on that Kanye has on Runaway. And so I wrote the poem broken at a completely separate time, because I don't know, I was just on something one day, and I was just like, I really like enjoyed that poem, and I was like, man, I gotta put this on the record. I really feel like this belongs on the record. And I made a whole different like piano section, produced a whole like new bass line, all that kind of stuff for that. And then when I had it all together, I was like, man, this is a little too long, and I just edited it, shortened it up, had to like do like that movement or whatever. And like, what's the cool thing is about like the Faraway X thing is that was the first time I actually put drums on the beat too. So there's like a whole like different version of that song that like will pretty much, that's a personal thing for me.
Nice.
You know, like pretty much no one else will ever hear it unless like you're with me personally in my room and you're sitting down, you're gonna listen to it with me. And it's still gonna have the bleeped out parts because I'm the only one that needs to know those parts.
That's awesome. We've already touched on this one a few times before, but just a fresh take on the Leafy Green.
Yeah, so Leaf Green is so the way it's spelled is like super funny because I am really into abnormal song titles or naming your song, not necessarily the chorus or whatever. And Leaf Green ended up not being that case because I ended up yelling that for almost a minute straight at the end. But the case of that being Leaf Green as in like Pokemon Leaf Green, which is why the beat is so fun and kind of like video game EDM-y. And I make a couple Pokemon references in it as well. But also Leave Green, Leave Envious. So I may have been envious towards you this whole time and like wanting you around here in my life, or like, you know, I want that thing that like I see that you have that I don't. But at the end of the day, I'm realizing that I'm better off doing my own thing, and you're the one that's actually envious and you're trying to lead me on to want what you have because you're insecure about what you want. And it's okay that we're all broken, but at the same time, like, because I realized my worth before you realize my worth to you, that I was able to leave the situation, and now you're looking at me like, damn, why couldn't I have done that? Why couldn't I be like that? Now, like, I'm not winning. I'm envious of you winning. So it's like we may have like been through a lot together, but if you're not about, you know, us progressing as a team, then you're just going to be the one leaving the relationship envious, not me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so like that was like a huge like thing about that, and I just wanted to make it really fun too, like a fun sad song kind of like. And I have like some like meme references in there too, like Be Gone Thought, like the whole what's a Dr. Fate thing where you see where like, you know, it's like if she breathes she's a thought kind of like
right.
like thing or whatever. And like I have like a couple like humorous kind of things in there too, so it's like not as sad dark as, you know, it
right.
is like kind of like tongue-in-cheek about it.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, and you also get along with Jamil so well. Like when I was first doing, because whenever I get somebody on the podcast, you know, I try to go through the music as much as possible, and like his stuff, if you just listen to it at the top value, you're like, oh, this sounds good, this is light, this is pop, this is good, and then you start getting into it, you're like, that was really sad shit he was just talking about. But like the ability of an artist like yourself or Jamil to kind of release that sadness, but then put a positive spin on it to where you could take it both ways. If you're just looking for something to nod your head to, it's there. Or if you're actually looking for something deep, it's there. It's not something I don't think many people could do as far as songwriting, for sure.
Which is funny because Leaf Green being so far down in the album's track list actually influenced how I like did some stuff for Dancing Depression in the beginning, with it being like light but also like about like some like negative, like more darker stuff. Right.
Yeah, you did a good job on that. Well done.
Thank you.
We got two more. YK2, the title track.
Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to rap. Yeah, that one I just kind of wanted to flex on my rapping skills because like I took the entire album to really hone and like focus on like music and like having a concept of a song and like doing something a specific way, or like having like wanting to try and experiment like a really odd and peculiar way that I hadn't done before, or try something new. They just kind of wanted to rap. That's
a fair explanation.
Just really wanted to rap on it. And I wanted to get my Young Kings on it. And they originally were already going to be on that, and that was going to be originally the song that they were only on, outside of their additional vocal features when they sang some background stuff for me. And the reason why they have reason why Tyrell's features on another one is because another guy dropped out and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it's like this is like the original Young Kings track I wanted on here too. And like, yeah, they came with their thing. It didn't take them long to like hit me back. Like that one was like pretty straightforward. The one thing I did have trouble with was the beat on the back end. I was having really bad issues with like my drum samples and like getting it to sound in the pocket that I wanted. And as soon as I sent it to Diggity D, he knew exactly what I was hearing, and then just it was able to like fit it in like exactly how I wanted to, with like different sounds and different instruments, and
nice.
like a talking drum is in there or something crazy like that. Like, you know, so yeah.
Is that how would you describe that feeling of being able to like fully tap into somebody's musical brain? It seems like you found quite a few kind of lifelong connections that your brains kind of just go on the same wavelength.
It's a crazy feeling actually, especially like with Bela, because I've been making music with Bela for like years. I've known him for over 10 years now. And like a huge reason why we're friends is through like music. And the fact that I can literally like sit with him and sing a vocal line and be like, I want you to make a song that kind of sounds like this, or I'll sing a chorus like our song Tumblr Crushes that we have together, the first joint on Sorry Awkward. I literally sang the original, like the chorus that's on there is not the original chorus. I sang the original chorus for him, and he just literally found the chords were in which, you know, the key I was like singing. I was like, okay, so you want me to do this? And it was like I think it was in B flat minor or something like, which was the exact key I wanted it to be in. Like, it was some crazy stuff like that where like it's a really crazy feeling, because I've like collabed with quite a few people, but like the people I constantly go back to are the ones that I'm like, hey, I have this idea, what do you think? And they can like easily play something out, or they're just like, oh, I already hear what you're going for, and even as I explain more, they're just like, I got it, and then they're able to like pull it all together. I'm just like, that's pretty much perfect. Like Bela playing guitar in certain sections like matches like my flow, even though he wrote the guitar part completely separate to me writing my verse.
Right.
And just having to work that kind of way.
That's awesome. Our last one was the last one. You told us that's the last one that you wrote.
Yeah.
But what can you tell us in addition to about Sarah Landing?
So when I wrote that, I was right before it was right before the showcase. I had produced the majority of that beat for somebody else, and then we ended up having a falling out. That dude also used to live in my house, and then he moved out, and so it was like crazy. And eventually, because I pretty much was like, well, this guy's not hitting me back, I guess I just have this beat for myself now, and I reworked it, restructured it for me in general. And because I was listening a lot to Beautiful at the time too, and the fact that Jamil had that beautiful reprise at the end, I was like, man, I need like a song kind of like that, not necessarily like a reprise, because I started it off with Summer Snow, but like a concluding like kind of like outro, right, kind of like song that not necessarily sums up everything, but like everything comes to a head, and then like this is like what I leave you out with, something nice and like lush, like not necessarily quote unquote easy to listen to, but like I also never wrote a song about my story or whatever. So that song is generally like about a quick story about the come up and like why I started making music, how I started making music and everything. I shout out some of my former projects on there. I shout out like my friends like Hunter and like Bela on there, about like instrumentalists that I met in high school. Like I kind of just wanted to do kind of like a little my own like beautiful reprise, right, kind of thing. And I named it Sarah Landing after the street that I grew up on from like I guess like most of elementary to high school.
Nice.
Yeah, I lived in one other place prior before like second grade. But yeah.
Awesome. And that concludes YK2.
Yeah.